Warning, this podcast contains heavy spoilers for not just one movie, but entire franchises. We highly recommend going and watching these movies before listening to us as a companion piece that stitches all the timelines into one creepy, crime-ridden story. There will be no more spoiler warnings. We do not break character. After this, there is no turning back. You've been warned. Hit the music.
You are talking about the nonsensical ravings of a lunatic mind.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
It's alive! It's
Hello and welcome to It's Alive podcast. It's a true crime, paranormal, interstellar podcast covering unbelievable stories that sound like they were ripped straight from the pages of a Hollywood script. I'm your host, the outlaw Dr. H.R. Smoking Steam THC, and with me as always is my very own scream queen, the perfect combination of beauty and brains, the bride of smoking steam, the India hard expert, the guts and gore, the gorgeous, sexy Amy Rose.
Hi.
So, we gave the church a break last week with Jesus decided. Well, kind of a break. We kind of still slagged them. But they got a new pope now, so it's time for us all to move on. So let's get into this week's subject.
So this week, we're back in the world of conspiracy as we look at a paramilitary religious cult known as the Grail. Yes. And what makes this cult more interesting than most is its longevity. The Grail claim to have been active for over 2,000 years and claim they are the protectors of the holy bloodlines of Christ.
Does that not just make them Christians? They're going for 2,000 years, right?
Yeah.
Did Christianity kick off directly after Jesus died?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Because it would have started with his disciples.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought they were all Jews. So we touched on this a little over the last few weeks on the Patreon bonus show. It's a live action. There's a conspiracy theory out there that Jesus survived the cross and went on to marry and have children. Now, some of the people, some of the people, there aren't that many women in his life. Mary Magdalene's the big one, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're going to talk a little bit about that later. So I'm not going to hold us up here on that because there is actually a few paragraphs about the whole Mary Magdalene thing. But what I found interesting though is there's also writings of a son and a daughter. Judah and Tamar. I don't know. She's not mentioned much more after that. I found one mention of a daughter.
Yeah.
Multiple mentions of a son, but one mentions of a daughter.
Normally the way it is back then.
And what I found even more interesting is I found writings that claim Jesus divorced Mary Magdalene and got remarried to a Jewish woman named Lydia.
Go away.
I didn't find much about that.
I didn't know Lydia, that name was that old.
I don't. But see, I don't think any of these actual names are the right way of saying them either. You know, I don't think Mary was actually what she was called. I think it's a longer kind of thing to it, and it's just an anglicized version of it, isn't it?
I don't know what the Hebrew for Mary is.
I don't know, man. The more I looked into his family, the problem you have is they claim that the Bible stuff, that there is a lot kept out of the Bible to keep this stuff away. And then all the other writings about it are kind of from fringe Christian groups.
Okay.
Who aren't really taken seriously by the big groups. So it's weird. It's hard to find solid information on it that doesn't go into crazy fucking conspiracy territory. Then there was the stuff about his brothers, which I find really easy to believe. Because why would Mary and Joseph just stop having kids after they have this one?
Exactly.
You know? Unless Joseph was like, you're going around cheating on me. We're shutting off down there.
But it would be unusual for a Jewish couple back then not to have other children, surely.
Yeah, James, Joseph, that's it. It was like a...
You're going to say Jose. I was like, no way.
That would be awesome. Simon and Jude. They're the brothers of Jesus.
Okay.
And Jude is definitely one of the apostles. We'll talk about him later.
Jude... Oh, I get you. Okay.
So, yeah. And then more I found out about Jesus having relationships was also one with John the Baptist. Some people claim they had a homosexual relationship.
That one confuses me.
Why?
Because he would have been a good bit older than Jesus. He baptized Jesus back then.
We've seen couples, or especially gay couples, where there's a way older man and a younger woman. What about fucking 2.5 Men, the mom and that? She's with Sarah Paulson. There's about fucking 40 years between them.
Yeah. But I don't know. I just even feel like he might have been like martyred before.
Do you think when it comes to gay relationships that age is less of a factor because you don't have the biological clock shit going?
Oh, they'd have been about the same age. Okay,
well,
doesn't matter.
Takes that
I
out.
had that
Because
wrong.
actually a few places I saw made the same point you did.
Mm.
A lot of when I found sources for this, a lot of people were pointing out that there was a big age gap between them.
So according to this, John the Baptist was born around 6 BC, so he was only about 6 years older than Jesus.
And to be honest, Joe, I was brought up to I thought they were cousins.
So did
I thought John the Baptist was his cousin.
Yeah, actually,
So I don't-
that
no,
sounds familiar.
no,
We could be
no.
wrong here, but
On the other side of things, there isn't a lot of fucking stock put into this theory about him being gay with John the Baptist.
yeah,
So I
it's
don't.
the first time I've heard.
It's the first time I'd heard of it too. I'd always heard they were cousins. So I mean, kissing cousins. All right.
Yeah, history has an awful habit of doing that, though, just calling people really good friends or roommates.
That's the argument with Mary Magdalene, and we're going to get into that really soon.
Yes.
So let's crack on because this is a fucking awesome story. I love it. I don't believe it, but I love it.
You like fairy tales.
But this is just fucking. If it was real, it would be really interesting.
Yeah.
Do you know? If this is all what's going on in the background, it's extremely interesting. But yeah, that's what I like. I like if you're going to give me a conspiracy theory, don't be running around with these chemtrail stuff and all this other kind of technical high-tech stuff. I don't care. I want something juicy. I want aliens. I want fucking weird religious fucking stuff. This interests me far more than government kind of fucking conspiracy.
I get you.
Even though there's a lot of government conspiracy in this one too.
Okay.
Do you want to crack on?
So the story of the life and death of Jesus Christ is well documented and well known. According to Grail legend, however, the story is a lie.
No shit.
What happened was this. On the cross, Jesus was fed a
Sporific?
sporific, I can never say that word, drug to put him in a death-like coma. He was taken down from the cross and secreted away. His body was tended to
secreted away.
His body was tended to and his wounds were cleaned, and after a few days, he awoke.
With a deadly hangover from the drugs.
Yeah. Is that not what route Juliet took as well? Was the thing to make her sleep in Shakespeare? And then, like a death-like sleep. And then Romeo was like, oh,
you've
shit.
seen a lot of like fucking acting and stuff where they have to try and make the person look dead and stuff like that. It's like, we're going to give you this tablet. It's going to slow your breathing so much that you're going to appear dead. And
So how much are you breathing?
Where did we see that lately? Oh, Chucky, the TV series.
Oh, yeah.
Remember they put the kid down into death so that he can go after Charles?
Yeah, I remember that.
Good old Charles.
The story of the resurrection was put forth as a way to distract people from the real Son of God so that he would be allowed to live in peace. He married a woman named Mary and had several children even. He died in actuality when he was 43 years old, run down by an awful cart.
Am I right in saying awful is like fucking guts and gore and shit?
Yeah.
So what were they doing? Why did they have a cart full of that?
Because you can eat offal.
Like animal kind of guts and shit.
Yeah. Did you ever have apple pie?
No.
Neither have I, but I know it exists. I suppose haggis.
Awful.
Haggis is awful.
I'm not big on organ meats.
I like kidney and I like liver.
It's
Liver
just
is
the sound of
absolutely
them.
fab. Don't know what that
I
means.
remember my mom used to be cooking. I don't know which one would you have. Which one of them would you have with a fry up?
Liver.
Yeah, I remember my mom cooking
The black one.
Yeah, it would smell really nice around the house, but I just couldn't bring myself to eat it. I just can't. The thought of
We'll
it.
get some. We can try it. You can try it.
No,
I'd eat it all.
thank you. Yuck.
You've had kidney though before.
In a steak and kidney pie.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Okay.
And even then, when I go to buy a pie, I would try my hardest to find one that's just steak. Just
Oh, I like steak and kidney. Would you eat tongue?
No. Not after watching Blood Feast, man.
But it's not going to look like tongue when you're eating that. So his offspring was still considered to be part of divine lineage, and a group immediately sprang up to protect them. The group was formed by Jesus' disciples and possibly a possible brother, Thaddeus or Jude.
So he dual names there. They can't tell. In sources that I've looked up, they say that Thaddeus was probably Jude. Jude was probably Thaddeus.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know.
Thaddeus told the child or children of Jesus' sacrifice and swore to protect them, and their bloodline would one day ascend again to lead the Christians to the promised land.
Where is the promised land? Oh, is that Israel?
Could be, yeah.
Stay asleep, boys.
That's why
You don't wanna go there right
they've
now.
been wandering. Do you know, that's why they were wandering. Do you know, wasn't it in the desert for 40 years?
And
or whatever
imagine
they
if
were
he
trying to
did
get
show
to.
up at the promised land right now.
Yeah.
Because let alone is there a war going on.
And he was like,
there.
it's definitely not that one there.
But there's let alone is there a war going on there. But even if he got there, the Jewish people wouldn't be on his side. Because is it not a part of their religion that they don't believe he's the son of God?
Yeah.
Even though I
maybe.
think they might think he is
He's a prophet.
Messiah. Yeah, prophet, but not the Messiah. That's it.
Yeah.
So Thaddeus starts the Grail.
Mhm.
And the original idea for the Grail was just to protect the family of Jesus from obviously the people that wanted to nail him to crosses and watch them wither away. How long does that take? How long are they on the cross for?
Oh, I don't know. Would it kind of vary a tiny bit? Because I know that the Romans did it a lot in Britain as well when they conquered Britain to the pagans.
Oh, but it was one of their big fucking punishments. Wasn't
Exactly.
It?
Yeah. I would assume, I'd say they sped it up with Jesus with the spear and through the side and stuff. Maybe they just got sick shit of it and was like, right, we need to hurry him
No
along.
drugs going to help you from that, Jesus. But yeah, when did they stop doing it? Because you don't hear of other crucifixions, do you? Not often.
When
I mean, name another crucifixion outside of Jesus Christ.
the thief that they let down.
Bar the two that were next to him.
In pre-Christian Britain.
Well, I've never heard of them. That's what I'm saying. You can't name someone that's been nailed to a cross.
No, they stopped crucifying people in about 337 BCE after the Roman Emperor Constantine the Great, who was the first Christian Roman emperor.
So once they all became Christian, it was like, oh, we can't do this anymore because we did this to our God.
Yeah, apparently it was partly motivated by that.
Okay. So the Grail anyway is set up to take care of Jesus. And this is something that you would see in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. This is where the Grail get their name from. They're taking care of the Holy Bloodline, which is what the Holy Grail is supposed to be. And
Yes.
the conspiracy around the Holy Grail is that it's not an actual Grail. Because I think the religious explanation for the Grail is it's the cup that Jesus drank out of at the Last Supper.
See, I've heard two. I think that's the most commonly accepted one. And I think there's another one that it's the cup that caught his blood also when he was
Bleeding from the thing.
bleeding. I don't know how popular that is. And I think that might be kind of a bit of bull, but I've heard it too.
Well, so that's the idea anyway. The Grail is taking care of the Holy Grail. And originally this is a small setup because you're only taking care of, you're taking care of one family in a time period where all you really got to do is move them one country over and no one's going to find them.
Exactly.
Or know who they are or know where they come from or whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
But as time goes by, the Grail set up and their plan starts to expand and become bigger and bigger and bigger. And as we know with religions, as they push on into modern times, they can get a little, I suppose a little more, their plans can get a little bit more wilder.
Okay.
A little over the top.
Yeah,
I'm not going to get into it here because we're going to talk about it later. But eventually you do have a hierarchy where the top guy is called the All-Father. You've got a holy executioner. You got the All Father's aides and number one guy. You've got like all these different departments that eventually breaks down to having their own military, their own soldiers, their own spy network that's supposed to infiltrate all the governments and play the puppet master to all the politicians and all this on behalf of the Grail.
Okay.
But their main goal was to keep the bloodline clean. And we're going to discuss that later as well because there was a way of keeping the bloodline clean that was not
I
letting anybody
think I
that
know
wasn't
what
holy
it
get
is.
Well, it's incest, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the Bible is full of it. I mean, if you go back to Adam and Eve, who were supposed to be the first man and woman, if that is true, and they slept together to make their babies, well, their babies had to start, their brothers and sisters who have to start sleeping together. So realistically, the whole lot of us will be inbred and,
Technically,
slightly odd.
when Cain killed Abel, he was exiled to the land of Nod. So maybe he met outsiders in the land of Nod.
I thought the land of Nod is sleeping.
It's his. it's that as well. But the land of Nod is in Genesis, and I think there was kind of darker kind of sinners in the land of Nod.
Oh,
It gets
hell.
well, it's still kind of an earthly place.
Okay, so kind of like the demonic underworld kind of thing, like with the Irish stuff of going through the sides and going through the little pathways into the other world.
So it's kind of a place. It's the Hebrew word, Nod, is kind of for wandering and exile. So it's the land of exile, basically. So that's where the bad people
Sounds
went
more
to.
like purgatory than anything, doesn't it?
Does I wonder if that's where they thought up of the idea?
I don't know. Ideas that Jesus Christ might have been married have a long history in fringe Christian theology, though the historical records say nothing concrete concerning the subject. But that's because they say that they wouldn't put it. That's because they left it out of the fucking Bible, isn't it? They still have a load of gospels with this stuff in it, apparently.
Yeah, you've got the Gnostic Gospels, and then there's another
They're in
type
here.
of Gospels.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about them in a minute.
So Bart D. Ehrman, chairperson of the Department of Religious Studies at the University of North Carolina, commented that although there are some historical scholars who claim that it is likely that Jesus was married, the vast majority of New Testament and early Christianity scholars find such a claim to be historically unreliable.
Much of the literature of this type has more specific emphasis on claimed marriages between Jesus and Mary Magdalene. There are indications in Gnosticism of the belief that Jesus and Mary Magdalene shared an amorous and not just a religious relationship. The Gnostic Gospel of Philip tells that Jesus kissed her often and refers to Mary as his companion.
Well, that's why Philip didn't make the cut.
Huh?
That's why Philip didn't make the cut.
Do you think all the apostles were walking around all pissy about it, and that's why it didn't get written in there? Because they wrote all the Gospels, right? And it's like, there's Jesus, sucking face with Mary Magdalene, and they're hiding their relationship. Like, why the fuck does he kiss her like that? What about the rest of us? Why does he love her more than he loves us? We were just like children who thought their mom and dad didn't love him as much.
Don't quote me on it, but I think it might be in one of the Gnostic Gospels, as in there was a tiny bit of like what you said, as in like
jealousy.
Yeah. As in like Mary Magdalene in these Gnostic Gospels was kind of seen as kind of a disciple as well, and it's like Jesus has that love for her. So
I've seen a lot of that in the kind of work with, the research I was doing that might have been the case. But then again, do you think that they would have pissed them off even more, especially if they were like, we'll just say average men who hadn't had a sinful life up until this point, but they are following. Because I know a lot of them were like fishermen and shit like that. They were just regular men who hadn't sinned in their life, but followed Jesus anyway. And then they look over, and he is all over this girl who used to be a prostitute. Do you think you're like, what the fuck, man?
Well, no, because I think Jesus would have used the famous line then in that case, those without sin cast the first stone.
Yeah. Or, that whole shit of a good shepherd will leave his flock to find the one missing sheep and bring him back. Do you know?
That's because his boss is going to kick his fucking arse if he doesn't bring the sheep back.
Yeah, what if you lose all the other sheep in the meantime? What if it's a really smart wolf who took one away, so you go look for it and they could go in and pick off the rest of them?
That is very true.
I mean, dogs are smart. So you'd just have to assume wolves are smart. Eventually, they're going to pick up the idea of, well, this fool keeps leaving every time we go in.
Just don't leave a blood trail and he won't know it's dead yet.
Or if there's a pack of them there, and one of them happens to pick off one of them, so one or two of them are going to fuck off with that lamb. There's still going to be a whole bunch of them left there for the rest of the pack.
It's a very bad idea to have a shepherd out there on his own. They should have
Christian
a partner.
shepherds suck. That's what we're getting at.
Okay. Several sources from the 13th century claim that an aspect of Catharist theology was the belief that the earthly Jesus had a familial relationship with Mary Magdalene. An exposure of the Albigensians and Waldensian heresies.
Heresies. I'm pretty sure.
Heresies? Sorry, yes.
That's
Heresies.
what I thought it was when I was reading it.
It's my eyes.
Considering what they're talking about, like
Heresies. No, you're dead right. Dated to before 1213 and usually attributed to Ermengarde of Béziers, a former Waldensian seeking reconciliation with the Catholic Church, would describe Cathar heretical beliefs, including the claim that they thought in secret meetings that Mary Magdalene was the wife of Christ.
See, I found that hard to fucking understand the first time I read it. So what I'm getting out of this is this guy, Ermengarde of Béziers.
Ermengarde.
What?
Ermengarde,
whatever. It's a big fucking stupid name. And he was on the outs with the Catholic Church was okay with all this shit when he was on the outs with the Catholic Church, but then when he decided he wanted to get back in with the Catholic Church, started talking shit about these Qatar people and being going like Qatar heretical belief system, and said, "Oh yeah, they're full of shit. They're the ones that were saying it."
Yes.
They were saying that Mary was his wife. But why is that a problem? Why is it an issue for Jesus to have a wife? Would it not be the right thing to do? Is it not the Christian thing to do to have a wife and have kids and settle down and stuff like that? Like, what was he? Why was he giving it up? He wasn't a priest.
Because if you are leading a group of people and this group of people are already jealous of this woman, is there going to be a thing of, oh, she's whispering in his ear and, you know, she tell him to do this?
Do you think they were thinking about that? I
don't know. That's just what I'm wondering.
Anyway, a second work, untitled and anonymous, repeats Ermengarde's, is that what you said? Ermengarde's claim. The anti-heretic, hang on, I can do this. The anti-heretic polemic Historia Albigenesis, written between 1212 and 1218 by Cistercian.
Cistercian.
That does not spell Cistercian.
That says Cistercian.
Cistercian monk and chronicler Peter of Vaux de Cernay gives the most lurid description, attributing the Catars to the belief that Mary Magdalene was the concubine of Jesus. So that would that not say that Jesus was married, just not to her? He was married and sleeping around, because as a concubine, not your like bit in the side, no?
Yeah. So a lot of monarchs' mistresses would have been called concubines.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So would that not mean that Jesus was married to somebody else and sleeping with Mary Magdalene on the side?
There's that, or Mary Magdalene could have been one of his wives.
But then she wouldn't be a concubine; she'd be a wife.
Yeah, but in Siam, they can't
marry.
Well, I'm not too sure about back then, but no, probably not. But in Siam, with Thailand now, but like the king of Siam had like his concubines, but he was married to them.
Okay. Yeah. These sources must be considered with caution. The two known authors were not themselves It's Cathars, right?
Cathars.
Yeah, not Qatar, the country. This is spelled with C, not Q.
And a TH in the middle.
Yes. And we're writing of heresy being actively, so they were writing of heresy being actively and violently suppressed. Every time I hear heresy, I just think Planet of the Apes. Heresy! They get really shitty every time they talk against
I was going to say no, his name is Caesar.
There is no evidence that these beliefs derive from the much earlier Gnostic traditions of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, but the Qatar traditions did find their way into many of the 20th century popular writings claiming the existence of a progeny of Jesus. So basically what they're saying is this contributes to what we're talking about today, the conspiracy we're talking about today. Yeah. So when they talk violent suppression, my instinct is to jump to the Grail. That is kind of what these guys are all about.
Keeping down with violence.
Violently suppressing anyone who talks against the gospel the way it's written. They know it's different, but they want you to follow these set of rules. So they're
the four gospels in the Bible is what you're saying. Huh? Or no. So as in like they're talking. Oh, I get you now. Sorry.
Yeah. They're trying to make sure that you're following the gospels that are in the Bible. The New and Old Testament. That's it. That's all you should be reading and understanding, and that's it. And you understand it the way we tell you to understand it.
Yeah, so the four gospels in the Bible. Yeah.
So they had to keep, and I mean, like they were very. I mean, when it comes to the Grail, they're on top of this because they knew they had to keep the bloodline hidden. I mean, let's face it. If the bloodline even came out today, if you found out today that they had kept the bloodline of Jesus clear up until this point, and now it was there, there'd be a lot of fucking people looking to kill that guy.
Either either in a bad way or for healing properties.
But see, I've always said this though, right? When they talked about the second coming, right? I always said there is no way Jesus could have a second coming unless he comes out here doing some serious fucking party tricks. Nobody is going to take him seriously. He would be branded a fucking psychopath and put into a fucking
He would need to be pulling some Lazarus shit, like bringing somebody back from the dead, and then we believe. Yeah.
Because I mean, how many fucking lunatics over the years have screamed, "I'm Jesus" on the second coming? Maybe he did come back at one point, and we just stuck him into a fucking mental hospital and left him there.
But then he can just scream doubting Thomas back at them, and then the Christians have to be all like, "Oh yeah, we were thought about doubting Thomas."
He goes to fucking heaven. He's just like, "I'm not going back down there again, Dad. Find a new one. I'm not doing this. Fuck this. Every time I go down there, those pricks kill me and fucking send me back up here." What's the way? It's like Little Nicky. The start of Little Nicky. Every time
That'd
he
be a
gets to
fun
Earth, something hits
conversation
him and
because
he's
he'd be
back
fighting
down.
with himself. I'm not going back there, Dad. Yes, you are.
Yeah, because they're technically the same person, aren't they?
They are.
But they're not. Because God's everybody, isn't he? He's in all of us.
He's in all of us, but as in like there's the Holy Spirit, God the Father, and Jesus Christ, and they're all the one
Holy Trinity.
entity.
Yeah. And on top of that then, so what the Grail were planning to do, and we'll get into this in more depth today and over the next few weeks, but the plan was, and I'm not going to get too bogged down with it, the basic plan was that at some point they would know it's the proper time to bring the new Messiah back, so they would kick off an apocalypse. They would manipulate an apocalypse. They'd make basically a nuclear apocalypse. They'd get us all at war.
Yeah.
And then they could roll out the new Messiah to save the world and make us all Christian again.
Okay.
And then they'd have control over everything because the Grail will be the ones behind the Messiah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, let's see how that works out.
And the bloodline of Christ was considered divine, and for over 2,000 years, the Grail carefully preserved the bloodlines of Christ, making sure it was not tainted by impurity. In practice, this meant a prodigious amount of inbreeding. The final descendant was an idiot in every sense of the word, but he had the paperwork to prove his divinity. The plan was for the Grail to start a global nuclear war in the year 2000, and then stop the war, presenting the Messiah as the savior of the planet. In truth, the Grail would then rule the world, and the Messiah could be conveniently dismissed. Many of the Grail faithful believed that the Messiah would truly save the world, overlooking his obvious flaws.
No, they say flaws. I've looked up descriptions of what they say this person looked like. We kind of get all this information from a great book about this conspiracy writer who is actually Irish, Garth Ennis from the north.
Oh, I've heard of him.
So I read all this in here, and he gave a description of what the Messiah looked like. And this book was written in the 90s. It's hard to talk about the Messiah without saying some bad words. So I'm not going to do it the way it is. He was special. He was a special Messiah.
I think the Messiah would be special.
Yeah.
More special than special.
Yeah.
Okay.
Special how we know special to mean these days.
Okay.
But how bad does incest affect people? Because I mean, like, I don't know. I've never met anybody who's a product of incest. But I saw our cats in my mom's house when we were kids. And those cats were constantly inbreeding. And their eyes were all fucked up from it. Physically, they look fine. But their eyes would get all crusty and shitty and stuff like that. It was really messed up.
Well, there was a long line of inbreeding in European royalty. I suppose there still is to a certain degree. But the Hanoverian rulers of Spain, I think it was in the 17th century, the last king in that line, King Philip, when he died, now he had the massive, it was Habsburg, not Hanoverian, the Habsburg. But he had, I showed you pictures of it before, like with the massive jaw, and he could barely speak. But apparently he died quite young. But apparently when they did his autopsy from inbreeding, they said that like there wasn't even really much brain there. It was just water matter. Like,
is it that bad?
Liquid. It's that bad. Like this king, he was, I mean, like for what, very fucked up, like from the inbreeding.
Isn't that though amazing when you think about it as well? That, you know, we were talking not so long ago about like people needing religion to find miracles around them. And I even think small things like that's a miracle. The fact that you're driven by instinct to mate and to procreate and all that stuff. But that instinct is built into you to not do that. Like there's that thing there to stop you from naturally from nature to stop you from doing that with your own fucking family members because it just doesn't work out right.
It's funny because if you're brought up in the same house, yeah, but there's been loads of these cases where like adopted children have found each other and they have had kids together, but there's studies being done that you're more likely to be attracted, like you mightn't have ever met each other, you might have grown up together, but it's more likely that you'd be attracted to each other than if you meet then in later life. And it's you don't know that you're related. You don't know that you're brother and sister, but that there is a good chance
weird.
that, I have to look that up again, but I remember reading a few articles about it, and it's there's a few studies being done on it because it's not just brothers and sisters. It's happened with fathers and daughters as well. And actually a famous one was Casanova, but it's happened with fathers and daughters. And
Family Guy did a whole episode about it, didn't they? No, they had one where Quagmire got his daughter and then put her up for adoption because he knew it was the better thing to do. And then he made the joke afterwards, like, maybe I'll see her in 18 years, giggity. Yuck. Anyway, the Messiah was not in a good state, to say the least. He was pretty much close to non-verbal. He couldn't really string a sentence together. He'd say a few words.
Yeah. Like King Philip.
And at the time, they believed in the Grail that this was a temporary problem, that eventually, like in fucking Invincible, where he's waiting to get his fucking powers, that his powers will eventually kick in at some point, and that will help mask the problem of what the Messiah is, because his divine power will rise him up and make him stronger and better and smarter.
Okay.
So we talked about the military side of the Grail. That's the Samson unit is what they were called. And they were specifically there as a military to protect the bloodline, to protect against any outside infiltration, any shit talking, anybody trying to fuck with their stuff. They'd send the Samson unit out there to take care of it.
Okay.
And they were no messing, top of the range, they were hand-picked from, like, you know, the top kind of military units, the top kind of anti-terrorist movements, the SWAT teams, all these tactical kind of places. They'd pick the best and then they'd audition them to see, you know, if we could get them there.
Yeah.
Biggest problem with that, though, is once the Grail gave you the invitation to audition,
you had to audition.
Oh, you had to pass the audition or you weren't going home because you knew too much.
Yikes.
So, yeah. Once you knew, you knew.
But a few, including the Grail's sacred executioner, Klaus Starr, knew exactly what he was and that he could not be allowed to live. The most feared man in the Grail, Starr, was long the sacred executioner, the sword of the All-Father. With his grating voice and his scarred face, he was the threat of the Grail's power in human form. Whenever the Grail needed to put pressure on a state or on a leader, Starr was the only one who paid them a visit. And when someone needed to be silenced, Starr silenced them.
Yeah, this guy's a fucking scary guy. He began his career in the West German Wehrmacht as a member of the elite counter-terrorism squad. See, they pick him from the best.
They do.
His first mission was to foil an airplane hijacking where a group of anti-Israeli terrorists were holding passengers and crews hostage. Starr and his squadron managed to board the plane and kill the terrorists with only one casualty, a 6-year-old girl. Starr saw the little girl, her head shattered by gunfire, and resolved that this is not the way the world should be.
So he was doing it for a good reason. He saw a 6-year-old girl and he felt sorry for her.
I'm going to let you feel like that about Starr for now, and I'll burst that bubble later. Maybe today, maybe next week. I don't know. I can't remember where it is in the story. Anyway, his utter distaste for chaos, his devotion to duty and law and order soon caught the attention of Brendel Hauptmann, an agent for the Grail. Hauptmann started checking on Starr's background, looking not only at his record as a soldier, but also as a person.
Ooh.
He was looking for signs not only of Starr's capability, but his loyalty to the goals of the Grail. The dominance of God over humanity and of gods over all chaos, basically. Finally, he approached Starr himself and asked if he had ever wondered if there was another way to approach the evils of the world. Starr, of course, was more than willing to listen. Hauptmann introduced Starr then to a man called Eisenstein. Not to be
really hard to say and not say Einstein.
I know. But he was the bureaucratic soul of the Grail, so he knows everything. While not the actual head of the organization, Eisenstein was the one who knew exactly what was going on, who knew all the plans, all the timetables, and he revealed them to Starr. He revealed them to Starr, and that the world was going to end soon.
Okay.
A great apocalypse would be started. With the coming millennium, millions would die. Do you think this was why we all heard that the end of the world was coming in 2000? Because that was constant, like.
But we also heard in 2012. All these religions get it wrong.
In 2000.
That was the Mayan calendar.
Well, no, we're going to find out why it didn't happen over the next 3 weeks.
Decent. And just before everything collapsed completely, the Grail would produce the Messiah, the true heir to the bloodline of Jesus Christ. All the world would be united under him and under the Grail. Eisenstein offered Starr a place in this plan, but first there was a little test. A renegade Grail agent had to be silenced. The problem was that While the authorities could be cowed into locking the man away in an insane asylum, there were a couple of reporters who were taking far too much interest in his story. So Starr's mission was simple: silence the renegade without arousing suspicion or leaving tracks back to the Grail.
Yeah, so he just blew that insane asylum up.
Yep.
Well, I mean,
handy.
His logic makes sense, right?
Yeah.
No, there were hundreds of murders to be investigated, not just one.
Mm-hmm.
And most of these inmates probably had more enemies than the renegade did. So they'd have to go look at them first. As for the loss of innocent life in this, Starr simply replied back with, how many children died at Sodom and Gomorrah? So it was like, there were collateral damage. We had to get rid of a few of them to make the plan work so it would be better for the rest of us. Fuck them. They're grand.
Having completed his mission, he was fully accepted into the Grail. He had control of men and served at the Grail's bidding. Finally, he was allowed to see the secret that the Grail guarded so dearly, the descendants of Jesus Christ, and he was horrified by what he saw.
Yeah, like we said earlier, in order to keep the bloodline pure, the Grail had kept their charges interbreeding, not allowing outside blood to taint the sacred line of Christ. As a result, they were idiotic, deformed, feces-throwing horrors. That's how I should have described it earlier.
Feces throwing, like monkeys.
Pretty much.
Okay.
The thought of what would happen if they or their horrible mutant offspring were presented to the world drove Starr to distraction. He could not accept this. So he resolved to sever the bloodline and find a new Messiah to give to the world.
What he was contemplating, however, was blasphemy, and he knew that in order to accomplish his goal, he would have to hold on even greater to power. But to rise to such heights would make him all the more visible and vulnerable. When All-Father Daranique elevated Starr to the position of sacred executioner, he was nearly ready. And it was the All-Father who finally made up Starr's mind.
Fair play to you.
What?
I had to look up Daranique earlier on. I've been calling him Aaron Q for the last couple of days.
Daranique.
Yeah. Daranique.
It's like Monique. That's how I remember.
Oh, yes. So there's a lot to say about the All-Father too, but we'll leave that for a little later. Let's finish our segment on Starford. I actually think the All-Father will probably be next week. We'll be still mention him a lot, but the details about the guy, Jesus Christ.
Of Daranique. Yeah.
Large and in charge, baby. All right.
Daranique reminded Starr of his history, of the steel that he contained. When Starr was young, he was attacked and scared by a group of boys.
Scared by a group of young boys.
He was also scared, though, after he was attacked.
I suppose, yeah.
He was scared, too. The boys put out his eye and drew a star for Starr on his face. The result of the attack was not only the blinding of Starr in one eye, but also the loss of his hair.
Which I suppose would come from being terrorized, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah,
The stress
Marie
of it
Antoinette
losing your hair.
famously went grey, like in the space of like a few hours before
That's
her
amazing.
execution. That's where they got it in Vikings when Lagertha went grey really, really fast. It was Marie Antoinette. She liked that, and her hair lost colour.
Mental.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't mind the star for a star. I've seen drawings of this guy. It's like a big ass scar, like in the form of not a proper star, but
Kind of like
the
lines,
kind of
like a
across.
stickman star, like an asterisk.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, all across the eye. Not nice.
But Starr didn't go to the authorities, and he didn't wait for the world to take care of his problem. Quietly, carefully, and without remorse, the young Starr went about the elimination of the boys who had attacked him. They all seemed to die in accidental but terrible deaths, and within 5 years, the young Starr had his revenge. This, Daranique believed, showed that Starr had the steel the Grail needed.
Or he was Roger from American Dad. They did a whole episode of this in American Dad too.
Oh, yeah.
Remember
I remember.
Roger and
No,
all the
I
kids?
remember it. That's true.
And now all I can picture is Roger as Star. That's it.
With
For the rest of
he's
this
bald
episode.
as
That's
well.
all I'm going to see for the rest of this episode.
in a white suit.
What Star also had, perhaps unknown to Daranique, was hate. Unquenchable, unstoppable hate. He'd have met a great Sith Lord. And at that moment, Star was utterly determined to see Daranique and his mutant messiah dead.
Yep. So he started looking for co-conspirators. He knew he
Before
couldn't.
you keep going, Mutant Messiah will be a shit hot comic book.
I'm pretty sure there's a movie called Mutant Messiah.
Mutant Messiah. Yeah. Okay, sorry. Keep going.
He knew he couldn't count on Hauptmann. The man was too dedicated, so he killed him. Then he started looking about for a new Messiah and people to help him realize his dream. And by chance, he learned of an order from Daranique to watch a young man named Jesse Custer. And upon investigation, he eventually found out why.
Oh, yeah. Because according to Daranique, Jesse Custer possessed a power that had never before been seen. A voice of command.
Yep.
Wherein any command he gave would be instantly obeyed. Thank fuck he got it, not one of the incels we were talking about, and it's a live action this week.
Can you imagine?
Have sex with me.
Now. Everybody.
Come to my basement with me now.
Christ.
Don't
Truly.
be bothering me, Mom. I got a girl down here.
Yikes. Truly, that would be a sign that he was blessed by God, and Starr knew that he would be a fine replacement Messiah.
Unfortunately, his pursuit of Jesse Custer would be his undoing in many incremental steps.
Yep.
So, right. We were going to talk a lot about that. There's some points here that we were going to talk about, but they actually are going to be in next week. So we're not going to go heavy into this, right?
Okay.
We're going to go into detail next week. Yeah. So I don't really want to get into this week. It's going to really kind of mess things up for
that's
next
it.
week.
No
So
episode,
yeah,
guys.
we're
See you
gonna
next week.
skip this little bit. But basically, all you need to know is
Yeah.
Jesse Custer was thought to have this power. He had a bit of a fucked up upbringing too, which we'll discuss in detail next week. And while his power brought a lot of good things to him, it also caused him a bit of trouble and a bit of hassle, especially because he was running and he had a bunch of God's people chasing him. And that was bringing attention.
Yeah.
The Grail are chasing you. It's going to bring attention
Of course
to you,
it
you know?
is.
So, yeah, that's basically what happened with him. But I'm not going to get too far into it because we're going to be talking about him. We're going to be talking about his family history. We're going to be talking about what happened in Anvil, Texas. Actually, we're going to be talking about that a little later today. We're going to be talking about the murder of his parents, his grandmother and her fucked up shit and the way
Sorry
she
about
lived her.
her.
Oh, my God. That woman used to buy and sell souls. That was her job. That's how she made her money.
She live in Louisiana?
It's like was it Elizabeth Bathory that used to get the women to kill the women to stay young?
Supposedly, yeah.
Same idea.
Oh, except this one actually did it.
Well, no, she thought she was buying your soul and eating your soul. It's
To
weird.
stay young, to stay alive, like. Oh.
Yeah. And it was her that kind of got him in the shit to begin with because she is related to the Allfather. So she was giving the Allfather all these messages about Jesse and his upbringing, and she kind of knew that there was something special about Jesse. And then when he got this power, all of a sudden, she obviously informed him. He started keeping an eye on Jesse.
What an awful person.
Oh, you have no idea. Wait until we get into it, man. You have no fucking idea. But yeah, move on. Let's just keep it going.
So before we move on with Starr's pursuit of Custer, I wanted to look at the whole conspiracy believed by the Grail and sort of a divine explanation for Custer's powers.
Right. This is fun.
Okay.
This is proper fucking batshit crazy fucking mental shit. And this is what the Grail believe.
Okay.
So the power that Jesse Custer has is called Genesis.
Mm-hmm.
Genesis, as we all know,
It's the first book
heaven
of the
and
Bible.
hell are at war, right?
Mhm.
Constant war, back and forth, good and evil, a power struggle. At some point in the 90s, 90s, crazy time. And this is inevitable. It's always going to happen. It's, again, that Romeo and Juliet story. A seraphim angel, who are like warrior angels, came across a sexy ass demon from hell. And the two of them ended up making the beast with two backs.
Oh, look at you, Shakespeare.
Not ideal in this circumstance. She got pregnant, and what resulted from the birth of this pregnancy?
Who was pregnant now, the angel or the
The
demon?
devil. The angel was male. The devil was female.
Oh, she probably had an easier time. I'd hate to be an
The
angel
demon,
with
not the devil,
with
the
it.
demon.
Okay.
So, what was claimed in the Grail's writings is that the angel realized what he had done wrong and went to meet the demon with the plans of killing the demon before the child could be born. In the meantime, the other seraphim angels found out what was going on and came to get him because they saw him as a traitor and they were going to kill him. They caught a hold of him and they cast him down like it happened to Lucifer. He was cast down to earth and out of heaven. But in the meantime, this gave the demon enough time to get away. And in the meantime, she gave birth, and the power that came out of her, it wasn't a fully formed child. It was like a power.
Just like a gust of wind.
An entity with no body. And it started shooting around the place, and they called it Genesis. And the problem with Genesis is it had a power that matched, if not overpowered, God's power.
So God's nose was out of joint.
No, God shit himself. And split, leaving the angels alone in heaven to deal with the fallout. I'm trying. Yeah. So we can, but we can go from there. That's kind of basically the idea that they had, that this is why Jesse has this power, is what they believe. Apparently, it was something that they had seen coming. That they claim. See, it's hard to tell, right? From what I can tell, there possibly is a group out there that call themselves the Grail. Whether they're this powerful and this fucking mystical, it is all beyond me. But when stuff starts happening, like any cult, when something happens, the cult leader will jump out and say, "That was me." I mean, there's a guy, what's his name again?
Peabody?
No, there's a guy that's claiming to be Jesus right now.
Oh, is his name Jesus? If I was claiming to be Jesus, I'd change my name to Jesus.
What's his name? I could tell you in like 2 seconds. If I can get it off. Anyway, the guy basically claims to be Jesus, right? The second coming.
Yeah.
And he is... Sorry, because I'm still trying to think of his name while I'm doing this. Basically, after COVID happened, just before COVID happened, he told everybody the world was going to start coming to the end in 2020. So when that happened, he took credit for it. And he's known for taking credit for...
Inri Cristo?
No.
Alvaro Diaz?
No.
Well, that's another guy that's living in a compound in Brazil at the moment that reckons he's Jesus.
What does he look like? Is he the yoga dude? Is he the French guy?
Oh, I'll get the French guy.
But that's not the guy I'm talking about.
Jose Luis de Jesus.
No. I can't fucking find what I'm looking for.
There's many of them.
Here it is. Hang on. Anyway, anytime something bad happens, he claimed any weather-related stuff, storms, natural disasters, he'll claim credit for it.
Okay.
And say it was his doing, and this is just the start of it. Come on, it's coming to me. Here it is, Lord Rael.
Oh, Lord Rael. Yeah. I've heard of him.
So, in a similar fashion, after this conspiracy starts about this guy having a power of the voice of God and all this shit, they then came out with, we've prophesied this 1,000 years ago and we knew this was coming and it's all a part of our big plan.
Dig your arses.
So this is where this story comes from. So, right, you want to...
As soon as Genesis was born, everyone knew it was a terrible thing. God himself fled heaven, leaving the angels in charge. The Adelphi were given the job of keeping Genesis caged, but soon discovered that this was a nearly impossible task. Genesis was a being of almost infinite power, unless it had a host to guide it. So
the Adelphi then are a different class of angel. Who'd have thought? You go to heaven, you're going into a class system all over again, huh?
What is the point like?
Bullshit. The seraphim were seen as big, strong warrior fucking angels who did all the fighting with hell. The Adelphi were more scientists and caretakers, and that's what they saw. Our job is to babysit Genesis now.
Yeah.
And that they did the lower level work of angels.
Okay.
So they would have been almost like God's servants up there as well, like, you know?
Yeah.
Bull fucking shit, man. How you go up there and find it? Yeah, fuck that shit. So Genesis, according to them, escaped heaven and fled to earth to find its host, Jesse Custard, the reverend of a small parish in Annville, Texas.
And why Genesis chose Custer is unknown, but the process of possessing the young preacher released an explosion that destroyed the church and nearly everyone in it. Custer was the only survivor. He emerged without a scratch and with a new and frightening ability, the voice of command. Whatever he tells a person to do using the voice, they would do it.
No, I'm going to go straight in because people watching this video will notice as you were reading that I was like this. There's a scientific reason. Again, this is what the Grail tell you. The cult of the Grail will tell you.
Okay.
This is what happened. This is what the disaster in Anvil was. Anyone that'll do a little bit of research into this will find. I mean, just look it up. It's from the early 2000s or mid 90s. I think 96 is when it happened. So basically, Anvil was built. It was a funny way of building it. So, do you know poop has methane coming off it?
Oh my God! Did methane explode and it was like, and the church was gone
They were using
over a slurry tank.
Kind of, but they were using all that because it was a very rural area. So they were using an animal thing, but they were also having their sewerage systems pump into this place where they would use the methane to power the town.
Okay.
They'd convert it into fucking power. The problem is that it's obviously a very flammable gas, and they had a guy who would take care of a machine to regulate it, to know when to filter it out, to what's the word?
Bleed some off if you needed to.
Yeah. And there's little pipes all over Anvil where you'd see it bleeding out and all this kind of stuff.
Fart smells popping out all over Anvil.
Yeah, the town that farted. Anvil. That's a bad place to live if your fucking town farts. Do you know?
Yeah.
But anyway, so what they say happened was that the guy who was actually in control over this was suffering from some form of depression.
Okay.
And he was just curled up in a ball inside in the room and started ignoring his duties and ignoring the warning signs that they were about to have a fucking full-on meltdown here, right? And left it get to the point where the methane started pumping itself out as much as it could out of these fucking pipes throughout the town. But eventually the pressure under there was too much for it to take, and it exploded, taking the entire town with it. The only thing about it is, it happened at a time where Anvil was in the news anyway. Because Jesse Custer, it's not coincidence that he's the guy that got pinned with this voice thing that they say, right? Jesse was having an awful crisis of faith.
Okay.
He felt like he couldn't hear God talk to him anymore. When he prayed, God didn't talk back. Which does kind of lead into what the Grail were saying about God leaving.
Yeah.
So he was starting to freak out in his thought, like, why can I not? Is it just that I've lost my faith? Maybe I've lost my faith. Why isn't God answering me? And at the same time, there was a man there named Odin Quincannon. And Odin Quincannon basically he had free reign over the town because he brought in the most money to the economy.
Okay.
He was a meat salesman. Meat packer.
So he was contributing to the methane then as well.
I suppose so. But he was one of the biggest in that region. And he was bringing a lot, like, from the workers and
he was good for the economy.
Yeah. They needed him.
Yeah.
Anvil wouldn't survive without Quincannon Meats being a factory.
And obviously Quincannon knew that.
Well aware of it.
Yeah.
But he had eyes on taking over more of Anvil to expand his business. And he always wanted the land that Jesse's church was built on.
Okay.
No, this isn't like over here where the churches are all, or in the Catholic sense, because these are Baptists or some shit. But like the Catholics, obviously, it's kind of like you're assigned to a church. The church belongs to the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Whereas this is like a wooden, old school fucking church.
You build your church.
His father built with his own, because Jesse's dad was a preacher too. And he built the church with his own two hands and passed it on to Jesse when he passed on.
Yeah.
But Quincannon had his eyes on it. And Jesse made him a deal that if he came to church one day and didn't leave as a Christian, he'd give him the church. And it didn't work, obviously. Stupid fucking things. It was probably only religious people would think, I can convert you. Come on in, I'll convert you in one day. So Quincannon came, Quincannon left, and he didn't convert them. But Jesse was unwilling to live up to his side of the deal. Okay. And there was a bit of a standoff between them for a few days. This also helped with Jesse being followed by police afterwards. There was a bit of a shootout between him and Quincannon's men. And he was trying to hold him off with a gun and all this stuff. It was ridiculous. But it's in the middle of the West in a small rural place. No one was really paying all that much attention to it until it was over.
Okay.
So eventually Quincannon realized he wasn't going to get the preacher out of the fucking church. Jesse realized they weren't going to fuck off. So a new deal was broken. And Jesse said that fair enough, Quincannon didn't leave a Christian, But how about if he could get God to come to the church and answer his questions? Would he be happy then that God existed and to leave the church where it was? And Quincannon, again, knowing he was going to win the bet, said, yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
Cool.
call God.
Go make a fool of yourself on Sunday. That's fine. Fine with me, bud.
Oh, boy.
So he vowed to bring God to church to answer his parishioners' prayers. Obviously, fuck all that.
Because God had left.
No, well, they got there, right? And it literally, this was such a big deal. This is such a small rural town. This was like the big fucking event of the week. And everybody that week was in church. Even people who weren't fucking Christian were in this church just to see what would happen. Jesse made this big call for God to come down. What he didn't realize was Quincannon was going to fuck with him. And he had an actor dressed as God come out and start playing the fucking part. But Jesse knew it was bullshit. And he got the hump and he just walked right out of the church. Left. So Jesse wasn't in the church when the church blew up.
Oh,
this is why he left without a
That's a bit
scratch.
fucking fishy, isn't it? No, I'm joking.
But this is what I'm saying. This is how the Grail twisted it. It was like, oh, he was the one survivor on a Sunday. Because he, technically, if you were to look at it and someone said, well, yeah, the church blew up during Mass, you would think the person at the head of the thing was going to be the preacher.
Yeah.
But he wasn't there. He had already left. Got pissed off, fucked off from the place and left. Because he told all of them in the church that if God wasn't going to come to him, he'd go to God. No, to me, that sounds like I'm going to go kill myself. But that wasn't what it was. Yeah. He had decided he was going to go out and find God. He believed he could find God. Now, whether he meant that spiritually or mentally, he gave up the church. He was walking away and he was going to fucking go and find God again before he returned. That was what he vowed to the church. The Grail took this to mean God was gone from heaven and he's gone to find him in earth and he's going to bring him back.
Okay, yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah,
so the basic, it's like what we always see in religion. You say one thing, they twist it to suit what they want.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah. So he obviously failed to bring God down. The church explodes. Jesse isn't there, but because Jesse should have been there, he was seen as the one survivor of Anvil. Do you know?
Yeah. And what Jesse didn't realize yet was God didn't show up in Anvil because he had abandoned his creations at the birth of Genesis. Men and the angels were on their own, and in Jesse's eyes, this was a betrayal.
Well, you can't blame God. I'm not a big fucking Phil Collins fan either. I mean, fuck me, this band, I'm out of here, dude. Finished. I'm going out to hell. The music is so much better down there.
God had made the world and then abandoned it. And that was something that Jesse couldn't let go.
Apparently, he found this all out. See, this is where it gets even wackier. He found this all out when he used the voice of command to call an angel down from heaven. Just like, you, down here, now. And they came on down.
Oh, so do you not have to be in the same room as somebody?
Technically, though, isn't heaven everywhere? God is everywhere. So the angels have to be kind of everywhere too.
So,
it's not, you're outside, so everybody's in the same area, aren't they?
Yeah. And okay.
Yeah, I do know. According to the Grail, it worked. I mean, fuck me. I don't
why
believe
not
any of
just
this
tell
shit.
God to come with the voice of command?
Fuck me, Amy. You found a hole in a conspiracy theory. Good job.
Thank you.
Would have made our episode a lot shorter if he did.
Well, obviously, if God has abandoned heaven, he's not hearing everything.
We got a whole 3-parter out of him just being missing, so let's just keep going.
Okay, cool. And if you think that's a bit far-fetched, then you're probably not going to believe what comes next. But before we get to that, I'll leave you process the story of angels, God, and evil religious operatives. And we'll pick this back up next week when we talk about the pursuit of Jesse Custer, the fall of Masada, and the patron saint of the Grail, and God's assassin, the saint of killers, William Money.
Wait, just for that part. Just for that part. Yep. Just for the saint of killers. Fuck the rest of it. I would have done an episode solely on this.
Why don't we? I kind of pretty fucking cool.
What?
The saint of killers.
Oh, you have no idea. Wait till you hear this story. It is fucking batshit, but it's awesome. And how nobody has made a movie solely off his story alone, beyond me.
Oh, that's our third idea we've got tonight.
We recorded It's a Live Action before this for tomorrow, which is all about incels. Go check it out. It's a good 2.5 hour long discussion. It's fun. But we did come up with some ideas, and that we have the video date.
You got to cut them out of the episode though, so nobody steals them.
we got proof we came up with the ideas.
Okay,
Time
cool.
stamped and everything. This is like the old
What
days,
were
yeah.
they again? Because I missed the first two. I can't
We have
remember them.
The video, instead of pictures on Tinder.
Oh, video.
updating.
Yeah. And
No,
not
we have
Shiveen.
Messiah. Mutant Messiah as a comic book, definitely.
And a place to hang out where you bring your own beer.
Bring your own beer bar. That was it.
Bring your own beer bar. Yeah. We need to come up with a catchy name. We can get a catchy name for that though.
BYOB.
Yeah, and if you want to use the beer garden, it's our BOYBG.
The incels love it. They're mad about acronyms.
Oh, decent.
It'll just be wrestling promoters and incels.
Until then, check out our Patreon for more great shows like the IAA bonus show, It's a Live Action, or our wrestling history show, Wrestling with Time.
Also, we have Amy's history show, Playing with Bones, and that's coming back in
2 weeks.
And your mini monster bios, which I always fucking love. I mean, you did the jackalope this week, right?
I did the jackalope
Do
this
you know
week.
what? I'm going to go jackalope hunting soon. And we're going to get ourselves a nice little jackalope
Say
for right
something
up
else.
there. What?
The elope was a bit after Jack.
I'm going to go jack off and elope. I mean, yeah. Along with that, we got exclusive pics, videos, news, reviews, all that at patreon.com/the Horrorverse Network. And it's only $5 a month with a 7-day free trial for new subscribers. So if you don't like it, you can say fuck us after a week. We'll be back next week with more tales from the Horrorverse. See you all next time. Same alive, lifetime, same Horrorverse channel. Okay. Love ya. Bye-bye.
Hey, lady. Love you. Bye-bye.